G'day guys, Maynard here for another StarCraft 2 guide. First of all, a big thank you to everyone that offered feedback on YouTube and Reddit with my first video. Hoping to keep improving the content in this channel to make stuff that's sought after by new and current StarCraft fans. Speaking of which, the most requested video on Reddit, Twitter, and YouTube has been to cover ladder anxiety and ways to overcome it. This honestly isn't a surprise at all. It's one of the most common questions I get. So to you new fans that might not know what I'm talking about, I'll explain. Ladder anxiety is simply the affliction of not wanting to queue for ranked play in fear of playing the next game. It's very common for people that play ranked multiplayer games. They can still love the game, they can still watch tournaments, love watching people play it on stream, but they just can't manage to push that play button themselves. I personally don't feel this anxiety anymore as someone that plays ranked ladder almost every day of the week, so stay tuned, and I'll share some of the ways that I've overcome it. In an effort to link my last video on getting into SC2 into this one, I'll break this video up into a couple of sections. If you'd like to jump to a certain section, they're all time-coded in the description of this video. I'm going to start this video with a section for beginners on getting ready for ranked ladder, which will go over important in-game settings. Then we'll get into fighting ladder anxiety and my 3 special methods for dealing with it. So you're at the point where you want to play StarCraft 2 against a real person, but you have a fresh account or you've never looked at the gameplay settings in the game, and we should definitely do that before pushing play. There's only a few settings that I want you to look at. First of all, make sure that show alerts is enabled. These are little pop-ups that will appear on the left of the screen letting you know when a building, unit, or upgrade is complete. This is good to have because you realistically won't have time to watch all your structures and progress bars. Giving the game more ways to poke at you about important progress in your build is a good thing, and I have no idea why this is off by default. Next, disable the Simple Command card. Simple Command card only shows you the move and attack button. Granted, that's most of what you'll be doing with your units initially, but this takes away the ability to do things like stop, hold position, and patrol, which are very useful and even necessary further down the line to handle controlling your army. Even if you don't use a few of these commands, it's important to have them available. Next, please, for the love of all things holy, enable enemy unit selection. I can't even fathom why this is disabled by default, and I honestly would love to see anyone argue and convince me why in any possible situation you would ever want this off. By enabling this, you can select a structure being built and actually see what it is, and also check upgrades on enemy units. This is so unbelievably important, and it blows my mind that this isn't just the default setting, so please enable this. Moving over to the right side here, I think something that's going to help you a lot in-game is change the show unit life bar option to always. This may look a little bit messier in-game, but seeing the life bars and energy bars of your army, and for that matter your enemy's army, is crucial. One final setting before we get into actually playing the video game, change Flyer Helper to always. StarCraft 2 is an isometric real-time strategy game, but unlike its predecessor, it's 3D. Those little lines underneath your flying units will show you where the unit actually is, so you can hit them with your various unit spells and abilities a little bit more easily. You might be asking, but there's so many settings, Maynard. What about mouse and keyboard settings, graphics, sound, blah, 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 blah. This game has been out long enough that veterans will tell you settings are objectively better or worse than others, but honestly, most of them are personal preference. Put on the settings that feel right to you. I don't want to take up valuable beginner tutorial time by talking about settings for an hour. Okay, a couple last things before we hit that play button. It's pretty intuitive, but while we're on the screen, let's just get it out of the way. Pick your race via these buttons before playing. And if you're learning, I suggest not touching this, but you can avoid playing a maximum of 3 maps in the ladder pool by vetoing them by this menu and putting an X next to the maps that you don't want to play. If you have a fresh, free-to-play account and you haven't played any games yet, you'll notice that ranked ladder is closed off to you, but it's only temporary. To unlock ranked ladder play, you need to get 10 first win of the day bonuses. You can get this by playing versus AI, which hopefully you've done a bit of already, or playing unranked games versus real people. Every 24 hours, this first win of the day bonus resets, so you'll have unlocked ranked ladder in 10 days for free. Unranked ladder is the same as ranked ladder, you just don't get league placements. You have a hidden matchmaking rating, commonly known as MMR, so if you play enough, you will hit people of your level eventually. Alternatively, if you don't want to wait 10 days, you can purchase the latest expansion of StarCraft 2, Legacy of the Void, via Battle.net, which unlocks ranked ladder on the account immediately. That's everything I think that's important to know before playing 1v1 StarCraft 2 against real people. And hopefully it does an alright job at bridging the gap between the first video and this one. Now let's get over the major topic of this video, ladder anxiety, and some of the ways that I found to overcome it. So you're too afraid to hit that play button. First thing I have to tell you is that there is nothing to be ashamed of, and you definitely aren't the only person out there with this problem. Like I said at the start of this video, this is the most requested topic. There are literally hundreds of thousands of people out there that feel exactly the same way you do. Every day I talk to people in my stream that are fans of the game and watch all the tournaments but haven't played a 1v1 in years. Dealing with ladder anxiety, or even just anxiety in general, is hard. There's never going to be some, okay, here's the thing you do now solution and just magically fixes it. There are many ways that work for some people and don't work for others. But what I'm going to share are some of the ways that I've found to be the most effective for people that I've talked to who have had ladder anxiety and overcome it, myself included. Ranked ladder in SC2 could be a very lonely experience. It's just you versus the world, and even though it can be incredibly rewarding to get far on your own, it can also be incredibly demotivating when you hit a wall, whether it be a certain matchup giving you trouble or just trying to break into the next level in general. You'll be happy to learn that you don't need to go it alone. SC2 has a large community and a healthy active player base. Most streamers and personalities in SC2 have Discord servers that you can join and find like-minded people around your level to practice with. Even just having a group of individuals with similar experience to talk to can help a lot. Being able to talk strategy, share replays, and even just vent frustrations can really go a long way to help you overcome the daunting loneliness that a player can feel when they play a lot of 1v1 ladder. Outside of Discord, I think StarCraft forums can be a great place for discussion. There's even race-specific subreddits that I definitely recommend for strategy and build discussion. I'll put a collection of hopefully helpful links in the description for these resources. Lastly, some people might tell you that team games don't help you with 1v1 ladder, but I disagree. Even though having double the amount of players or more in a game in SC2 definitely changes the environment, there are plenty of builds that are quite viable to practice in team games. Just the action of playing SC2 with all the tools you would have in a 1v1 ladder game helps your basic mechanics and strategies. I'd recommend grabbing a partner instead of queuing randomly, but regardless, it's still useful. To summarize, the StarCraft community is awesome. Most of them are more than happy to help you, even happy to give their time to practice with you and more. While 1v1 ladder might feel like it sometimes, don't ever forget that you are far from alone. This is definitely easier said than done for some people, because this is something that only you can do for yourself. Essentially, this method is asking you to be mindful of the feelings of ladder anxiety and working with the feeling rather than against it. Easy peasy, right? Maybe not, but bear with me here. One way to deal with the feeling of ladder anxiety is to try and take a step back outside of your head and be mindful of what's happening. Consciously reframe the things that are causing you anxiety. When you're laddering, try and apply some logic to your situation without lying to yourself. Does it truly matter that you're playing another person? Does it matter what this person thinks of your skill? Do your ladder points truly matter? What's the worst case scenario here? On a personal note, what is the worst case scenario is actually how I deal with anxiety I've had outside of laddering. For example, when I'm waiting for a call on whether or not I get a job I really want and I'm feeling anxious about it, I think about the worst case scenario, which is, not getting it, and consider, is it really that bad? Will I be kicked out of house and home? There are always more opportunities out there and I will live to fight another day. Well, if the worst case scenario can't hurt me, then no outcome in the situation can hurt me. So let's apply that to ladder. Worst case scenario in a ladder game is you lose some points and maybe your opponent says something nasty to you. Do those points matter? Well, no. If you keep playing, you will improve. You will get those points back and more. It's just a matter of time. Does it matter if you're a low league? Not at all. The people you're playing every day are low league too. Everyone started somewhere. Does it matter if your opponent said dumb stuff to you? Absolutely not. What are they going to do? Tell people that you don't know about how they beat you to more people that you don't know? Call their mother and brag about how they beat someone in a video game? You're on a journey to improve and their words mean nothing. Ignore them or block them and cue another game. These are just a few examples of common sources of ladder anxiety and some things to consider to apply logic to the situation. There are no mental gymnastics here. These things I listed are all facts. Whenever you feel the unpleasant sensations of ladder anxiety, let it happen and be mindful that you're feeling anxious. Take a step back and be conscious of some of the facts to help you through the unpleasant feelings, and they should start to get less unpleasant and eventually will hopefully disappear entirely. To get better at StarCraft, it probably doesn't come as a shock that you need to play a lot of StarCraft. So these methods have the intention of you getting to play as many games as possible. Part of the reason some people have trouble playing ranked ladder is because they're afraid of losing their precious ladder points. So let's play StarCraft without winning or losing being a factor. Crazy, right? Let me explain. Focus goals are basically dedicated practice. It's like working out a muscle group in the gym. Chest day, back day, leg day, and so on. An example of this is having a chunk of time. Say you have time to play 5 or so ladder games today. A good focus goal is something like no supply blocks for those 5 games. For new players who don't know what I'm talking about, supply blocks are when you're producing too much for your unit capacity. I went over supply and how it works in my last video. Your plan is to go about your build order and play the game, but the only thing you're tracking, your goal in that game, is whether or not you're keeping up with supply depots or pylons or overlords during and after your build order is complete. The loss doesn't matter, the win doesn't matter. This is the only thing you care about. This is your focus. At the end of this play session, give yourself a score of how many games you got supply blocks versus how many games you played. You can do it on a piece of paper or a notepad on the PC or whatever. It's hard to track improvement in StarCraft. Your MMR score isn't really indicative of improvement because it'll go up and down all the time, as we discussed earlier. Average MMR score rising maybe, but you can easily track these individual aspects of your play if you dedicate regular practice sessions to them. You can go from 1 out of 5 games supply blocks to 3 out of 5 games and eventually, hopefully, 5 out of 5. Then just like you would in a gym, let's add more weight. Let's make it harder on ourselves. We always want to be pushing ourselves, not just coasting with the same numbers. So another focus goal that I use that I find you can easily do this with is spending your minerals. Having a bank of minerals in StarCraft is something you want to avoid in the early and mid games. So you start with the goal like, I want to keep my mineral bank lower than 2,000 minerals this game. If I keep a focus on my production, I can keep the number below that. Eventually, when you get comfortable with that number, drop the focus goal threshold to maybe 1,500 minerals and then maybe 1,000 minerals and so on. Alternatively, if those starting numbers are still too hard, you can raise that number to something that's challenging but doable. There's zero shame in it. This practice is a very personal thing. There are quite a few good focus goals out there that I love using very regularly, but you can come up with some yourself based on your own play. There are plenty of decent StarCraft players out there that can look at your replays and help you come up with some of those personal goals in those communities I mentioned earlier. So that's it. These are 3 methods to fight ladder anxiety. So after you've followed all the steps at the start of this video and get ready for ranked ladder, try out one or a combination or all of the methods that I've listed in this video. The whole idea here is to get you to play as many games of StarCraft as possible. It's basically cognitive behavioral therapy. People that work with anxiety therapeutically usually recommend something like cognitive behavioral therapy, which involves exposing yourself in manageable ways to the things that provoke anxiety. Eventually, over time, you realize that you can get through it, being aware of the feelings of anxiety and what the sources are. Everyone's different. Sometimes things click for some people, and sometimes it takes a little longer. It's completely fine either way. The important thing is that you find a way to keep trying. In the interest of keeping people motivated, let's try something out here. If you have a Twitter account, post your focus goals and your progress with the hashtag SC2 focus goals. I'm going to be looking at tweets with this hashtag personally and bring them up on my stream to offer feedback, support, and praise for people who are trying to battle through ladder anxiety or even just improve their StarCraft mechanics. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I've got some ideas for future ones, but if there's anything in particular that you want to see me make, I'll be keeping an eye on Twitter, Reddit, and YouTube comments, and feel free to reach me live on my Twitch stream every weekday. Much love. Happy StarCrafting.